I decided to film this one in front of my washer and dryer, you know, so that I can fulfill all of my gender-assigned duties when I'm finished screaming into this camera. Oh yeah, and I found my old intro. Good for me. Turns out it was exactly where I left it. In the 1950s. Oh boy, I picked a hell of a time to finally get around to actually filming this video. Before we get into it, a couple things. One, trigger warnings up and down the block. We are going to be talking about Schmishmorshman today, which I will be referring to by its regular name once I'm certain we are past demonetization zone, although the odds are pretty good that this video will get demonetized anyhow, which is whatever, I don't care. I really just kind of want to talk about all of this because I feel like it's irresponsible not to. We're going to be talking about Schmishmorshman. We're going to be talking about the potential for SA and everything that goes along with that, the worst type of SA. There are some graphic details in this video that we're going to watch some of. If any of this troubles you hugely or triggers you, please just donate to Planned Parenthood. Just go. I might lose subscribers for this video and I don't really care. I'm angry, and I'm really angry because there's a scuff on my lens and it's bothering me, and I really hope that you're not going to be able to see it, but who knows. If you can, I'm sorry. I'll put a different lens on next time. Also, if you couldn't tell, I moved. I have moved. I'm in my temporary residence right now, which is my mom's house. So happy Mother's Day to all the women who are... Ooh, feels like a weird time to have Mother's Day. So I thought it only appropriate today to not put makeup on and only just this obnoxiously red lip. If you haven't heard, which I'm sure you have, especially if you live in the United States, but Lord knows everybody that doesn't live in the United States is often more knowledgeable about things that happen here than we are about what happens there. Roe versus Wade is likely about to be overturned, according to a Supreme Court leak. By the way, the Supreme Court has the grossest acronym, which is SCOTUS. Just always makes me think of balls. You know, like hot, sticky, sweaty, wrinkly balls of old white men who get to decide what women and all people with uteruses can do with their bodies. Ew. In case I do need to say it, Roe versus Wade being overturned would be a huge detrimental, fatal blow to the rights and what's left of the bodily autonomy of women and havers of the uterus. By the way, if any time in this video I just refer to women, I do include everybody with a uterus, anyone who is able to get pregnant and able to get an abortion. I just feel like sometimes I get so fucking heated that I only say women, but I do wish to include all people who can get pregnant. If Roe is overturned, this would allow for state-by-state legislature about abortion. And many states already have trigger laws in place for just such an occasion, meaning that, like in places like Louisiana, they've all but decided to rule any abortion as a homicide, and now they're voting on banning IUDs. So as we go, we'll be sort of dipping into the sort of finer points of everything that's going on. And I wanted to make this video about 3 weeks ago when this video came out, but I was packing my house and I never had time, and I did not anticipate this becoming something that that would be wildly relevant so soon. By the way, I don't think any woman or any uterus haver is surprised that Roe versus Wade will be overturned. Like, nobody's surprised. I'm just gonna readjust. So, what are we watching today? As I'm sure a lot of you are aware, abysmal child exploiters, the Labrant family, released a documentary, which is a documentary, a few weeks ago entitled
Abortion, period, parentheses, documentary.
I knew before I watched it the first time that something in me would want to abort myself after watching it. What I didn't realize was that I would want to abort myself like 40 seconds in, and it never got better. But I figured what a way to propel the conversation about Roe versus Wade and its likely overturn. And, you know, we'll just abort some of my brain cells along the way. I'm really not looking forward to watching this again. Okay, can't wait to meet the people who run these pregnancy centers the next time. I'm just trying to get my birth control on my way to Planned Parenthood. That cost me, mummy. Look, I like the heartbeat, just as a nice metronome behind the montage of the growing fetus. It almost makes me forget that at a 6-week visit, what you're hearing isn't actually a heartbeat. It's literally electrical activity between the cells, on account of the fact that at that stage a fetus doesn't have a cardiovascular system. That sure won't stop Oklahoma. They want to institute a 6-week abortion ban, which is technically a 4-week abortion ban, based on how a gestation period is calculated by week.
Abortion has been arguably the most polarizing, heated, and controversial civil rights issue since 1973.
January 22nd, 1973, to be specific. I just want to let you know that I've done my research and that I'm also a woman. I have a uterus. That's all.
There is so much passion on either side of the topic, and seems to be no middle ground and virtually no humane conversations.
Wow, well, judging by that intro, you would think that this is a pro-choice documentary. It's probably not. By the way, the graphic. Remember when the baby was breech and Dr. Dumbfuck grabbed the forceps, jammed him up clear past your cervix into the uterus to clamp down on Junior's leg? Good time. I know we're gonna get into the D&E abortion section, and I'm just going to go off the rails then. So this is just preparation for that moment, because holy shit, I can't even get into it yet. Let's just go. We're not even a minute in. Let's do it.
So much anger and so much hate.
So much anger and so much hate towards this video. Yeah. I can't believe the audacity to say things like so much anger and so much hate while our bodily autonomy is on the fucking chopping block, literally, in 2022. I fucking hate this video so much. I'm gonna try not to yell, because I'm not alone. But holy shit. It's been a long time, and maybe it's just because I'm heated because of what's going on right now, but like, holy fuck, I am angry.
Instead of pro-life or pro-choice, is it possible for us to be pro-love?
The fuck out of here, pro-love.
Is it possible for us to love both the mother and the baby?
No, it's not. It's not possible for pro-lifers to love the mother and the baby. And let me tell you why. Prioritizing cells over existing fully formed human beings being used as a host tells me no. Because it's not simply, oh, don't do it. It's often medically necessary. By the way, even if it is, I don't want this baby, that's okay too. Because again, we're not hosts for spawn, we are people. But as I was saying, often abortion is medically necessary. For example, an ectopic pregnancy is what is known as a non-viable pregnancy. it cannot survive there. And because of that, if you cannot remove those cells, that fetus, the mother will die, as will the fetus. Or, I'm sorry, how about cases of rape? How about cases of rape that involve youth, kids? A 13-year-old. Say a 13-year-old is SA'd and ends up pregnant. You want a 13-year-old to carry through a pregnancy? To put their body under that stress and that amount of pain and the torture of childbirth? You want a child to sacrifice their body for something they didn't ask for? Get all the way the fuck out of here.
Maybe the answer isn't either or, but rather both. I have my personal convictions. You have yours. We're all so different, and that's okay.
So we're comparing abortions to literal genocide. We are comparing abortion to the Holocaust. These are not lives lost. These are cells lost. By the way, cells from a fetus can be used for some spectacular things. I think the issue is that a lot of people who are very pro-life and very ignorant about abortion, the procedure, everything that surrounds an abortion, they have this picture in their mind of like a full-grown, like 3-month-old in the womb being ripped limb from limb, and that's not what's happening. If you've tracked a pregnancy on the pregnancy app ever, right, and they tell you month by month, oh, it's this size, it's the size of an apple seed, so you're telling me a mother's life is not worth more than some cells the size of an apple seed? Really? I'm just going off on a tangent here because we were talking about how they just compared abortion to the Holocaust, where Jews were persecuted and murdered en masse for just being Jews. That is not the same. It is not even close. And to put that on women who have, or people who have uteruses who've had abortions, is disgusting. Because nobody is murdering anyone. It's not murder. Sorry. If you follow a pregnancy to term, that requires you to not only care for an infant, and if you don't have kids, by the way, which is fine, I totally support you for not having kids, do you understand the impact of having children? Because it requires you to sacrifice everything. Your whole life, all of your goals, your dreams, your body, your time, your attention, your sleep. It's a huge responsibility that if you do not follow through with properly, you end up in jail. Did you know that? Like, if you don't actually, I know this doesn't apply to a lot of fathers out there. Yeah, we'll do that on our own, I guess, because, you know, super. Wow, I sound bitter. That's okay, I am. All that to say, that's a huge part of, like, when a woman does not feel ready to have a baby, does not want a baby, that doesn't mean that she needs to close her legs or needs to practice better contraception, because odds are she probably was. Women take care of themselves. Do we not strike you? I mean, I might not be a shining example, but like, do we not strike you as the kind of creature that do not take care of ourselves? A lot of abortions do occur because of an accident, faulty birth control, stealthing, which is a thing. If you do not know what stealthing is, that is when a man removes a condom mid-sex without consent. That's assault at the very least. Even if the choice of being pro-choice is that I don't want this baby, that is still not the same as genocide, specifically the fucking Holocaust. Oh my god. Oh my god, the ignorance of fucking comparing the two is just fucking gross.
But where is God's heart at?
I don't know, maybe we could ask him if he was real. Oh hell, let's just say he is real. He aborted his own son at 33 years old. You know, after forcing his mother, married, to carry him without ever, you know, like checking in with her. Like she was some fucking dairy cow at a factory farm. So that's where God's heart is at. I'm wagering he probably would have been just fine if he rolled up to Planned Parenthood.
Where is the truth and peace amidst all the chaos and lies? We want to go on a journey to find out the truth and to find out how we could actually help and make a difference instead of just adding more noise to an already deafening discussion.
So what if you're watching this and you're thinking, should I keep my baby even though it's too hard?
Well, I know the first place I would go is to watch these fucking chuckleheads in search of advice. Right out of the gate, that'd be option number one.
I was 19 when I got pregnant with Everly.
Of fucking course your daughter's name is Everly. Oh my god. No offense to the child. It's just, she just looks like the kind of bitch that names their child Everly.
I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was actually in school, in college, and I was too scared to tell my family. I was too scared to tell my friends. It was just a lot for me to take in, being so young. I remember those moments just being so terrified of just like what the future would look like, what my life was gonna look like. Just so many things going through my head at that moment, and just knowing how hard it was gonna be.
Yeah, for sure, and that's super normal with all pregnancies. But fear of how hard this is gonna be is vastly different than I am physically, financially, emotionally, mentally incapable of caring for a child, and I'd rather not force a terrible life onto an innocent child or onto myself to set yourself up for a life of like, badly parenting a child when you knew from the jump that you were not fit to be a parent. Like, if you were adopting out a child, would you adopt them out to somebody who didn't want children? Or would you adopt them out to someone who does?
But ultimately, in the end, how worth it was gonna be looking back now. I know for me personally, my choice was always to keep my baby.
Wait, didn't she just say...
What if you're watching this and you're thinking, should I keep my baby even though it's too hard? As a matter of fact, I was in that position.
Okay. Well, there's a nice montage of their children in there, which I'm not going to show you because A, it's meant as a guilt tactic, and 2, because I don't exploit their children for money. That's their job.
In America, over 2,000 abortions happen every day.
Every day in America, thousands of knuckle children become filling in a tube sock.
Every day in America, 100 people die in car accidents. 1,300 people die from smoking. 1,800 people die from heart disease, the leading cause of death in the US, according to the CDC.
Did you know that roughly 1,800 women were murdered by men in 2019? Did you know that transgender folks are 4 times more likely to be victims of violent crime by men? I just thought if we're throwing out some numbers, I would just throw those out there. Just for you to chew on.
By definition, abortion is when a pregnancy is ended so that it doesn't result in the birth of a child.
Well, actually, the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy, most often during the first 28 weeks of pregnancy. So, if you couldn't even look up like an actual definition, I already don't trust you. Great documentary, though.
Why are we even making this? Why are we adding flame to an already crazy burning fire? And the answer is just, if one baby is saved from this, if one mom chooses to keep her baby from it, then it's all worth it. This documentary by no means is trying to illegalize abortion. After this documentary, you're still gonna have the choice.
No, the fuck we're not. The fuck we're not. And that's thanks to people like you. Documentaries like this and the rapid spread of misinformation. You're the clowns that vote for these ignorant ass fucking people, these representatives that end up shaping the laws. So don't act like doing something like this doesn't have consequences. So, just some food for thought there.
Know that there's gonna be one mom watching, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 100, maybe 1,000. We have no idea of the ripple effects.
But just for you guys to know all the resources out there, and also for us as a church, and just me and Cole even, just that how much more we need to be doing.
We want to go into this finding out what resources are available for women that you might not know about.
Great, thanks Cole. There's links below in my description box with some pertinent info on how to best protect yourselves should you need an abortion or emergency contraception. And I despise these people.
Are there resources, you know, in your city? If not, is there something that the church should be doing?
Well, they could start with paying their taxes. But also, get your fucking sky daddy out of my uterus. We don't all believe in your bearded white guy in the sky. You know what I mean? But if I did, I feel like, I don't know, he'd be kind of weirded out about how much you exploit your children for money. You know, that is kind of weird.
I mean, maybe you aren't pregnant. Maybe you aren't the one facing the question of whether I'm going to have an abortion or not, but you're thinking, what more can I do? How can I better help? How can I better stand with these women?
Here's how, and I'll give you like a little tutorial, a little step-by-step, if you will, you know, just to help you out. You can get out of her fucking business, all of them. You can get out of all of their business, and then let them all make decisions about their own bodies. That's how you can best stand with those women. All women, anyone with a uterus, just fuck off, right off, just out of here, out of here.
So what happens during an abortion?
In private practice, I performed just under 1,200 abortions.
Okay, before we let this clown take the podium, let me tell you about Dr. Levatino here. Evidently, he performed, as he will say, about 1,200 abortions. He has since retired, and he stopped performing abortions and became pro-life after his 5-year-old was tragically killed in what is described as a tragic accident. I don't need details. So he turned to a very staunch pro-life stance through the Christian ministry known as a Focus on the Family. And if you know anything about Focus on the Family, yikes.
So I feel like one of the most important questions that everybody asks is, when does life begin? And if we had a direct answer, then I feel like this wouldn't even be a conversation, because if we could all agree that life began at a certain point, then abortion should be allowed before that point.
Sure, ding dong, who couldn't find a clitoris with a map, 2 hands, and a flashlight. Except it's not always that cut and dry, because again, there are things like ectopic pregnancies, fatal birth defects, miscarriages, and also agreeing on when life begins still does not give women bodily autonomy, or uterus havers as well, bodily autonomy. Okay.
When would you say life begins?
A human egg is fertilized by a sperm, and that is a single-cell organism that has a unique genetic makeup. So on that basis, human life begins at fertilization.
Then why doesn't child support?
But a lot happens after that. It gets complicated, but I really do believe that a human life, that individual human being with that unique genetic signature starts at fertilization.
Cool. So if we all agreed on that, as Chachi over here proposed, every person with a uterus would have to carry every pregnancy to term. So that was a really cool tactic to be like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna give you the layup. What if it seems like if we could all agree on when life begins, and we could all agree and come together, and blah, blah, blah. And Doc over here just knocked it out of the park. He was like, oh, well, that starts at fertilization, which means that at any point you go to an OBGYN and that OBGYN is like, hey, you're fucking knocked up. Sorry, no abortions for you, no matter what.
When you figure out here, not here, that killing a baby this big for money is wrong, it doesn't take you too long to figure out it doesn't matter if the baby is this big or even this big. It's all the same.
No, doc, because when it's this big, it's not a baby, it's a fetus. Let's do a hypothetical, shall we? You have to leave one out in the cold. Ready? You have a 6-month-old infant, and then you have, let's say, a woman who was doing IVF treatments and no longer needed her embryos. A petri dish full of those embryos. Which one of those things are you going to leave out in the cold? You can only bring one in. Which one are you going to bring in? You're going to bring in the 6-month-old baby, right? Unless you're pro-life. In which case, what are you going to do? Just wondering.
Whenever we start saying, like, at what size is it a human baby, it's like, well, what size is a human? You know, whenever you realize that a baby this big, and this big is a baby, it doesn't matter if it's this big or this big.
I fucking hate listening to men like this talk about women's bodies. I say women because I'm sure, in addition, he only holds in absolute ignorance about non-binary folks and trans folks. So maybe I'm wrong. I doubt that I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if we're going based off of size, our baby in the womb right now, she said, was like as, you know, the tip of my finger, but we saw little arms and legs on our ultrasound.
And the baby was moving around.
The baby was moving.
Oh my god, the baby was moving. So then they give you a little montage of what's her face getting an ultrasound because apparently she's knocked up again. Again, I feel like this is another thing to pull at your empathy or your sympathy, your heartstrings, to guilt you, to make women and folks with a uterus feel like they are doing something wrong when they are only seeking necessary health care.
So I feel like a lot of people watching or listening might not know how abortions are performed, you know?
Time out. Dr. Altman is also a retired abortion doctor who now belongs to the cult Christian ministry focus on the family.
I was really very pro-abortion. I had had an abortion myself, and I didn't think any woman should have to bear a child she didn't want.
And she refers to a D&E.
In our training program, we learned how to do first trimester abortions, but I was so gung-ho that I went outside of the program and got one of the local abortionists to show me how to do D&E abortions.
Which is a dilation and evacuation procedure, as the dismemberment abortion.
Which are also known as dismemberment abortions.
Usually because it's usually performed in a second trimester, often because there are fatal consequences or massive defects in the fetus. Odds are that by this time, this baby is wanted. So she talks a little bit about how the process works, but from everything I've read, I mean, she is the doctor, okay, but from everything I have read about D&E, she really makes it out to be much more, I don't want to say graphic, because I don't feel like graphic is the right word. I feel like torture. I feel like torture for the fetus is what she's going for.
Heavy-duty clamp and grab whatever you can grab, an arm or a leg usually, and as you're pulling it through the cervix, the body's too big, so it's not going to come, and so with enough traction and twisting, the arm or the leg comes off.
She really paints this image of like a child being torn limb from limb, and you really have to take graphic imagery like that with a grain of salt.
And you do that until you've got everything you can, and then you have to reach up and try to crush the bigger parts.
Yeah, that really tugs at the heartstrings. But again, if the pregnancy isn't viable, or there are other complications, or outside factors, people with uteruses still don't deserve to be painted as fucking murderers for a necessary procedure.
Just bring them out in pieces. You can tell when you've crushed the head because the white brains leak out.
Literally painting a picture of a fully formed baby just being massacred. Fear is the most common way conservatives, particularly Christian conservatives, get you to buy their snake oil. And if you don't believe me, that's okay. I'll see you in very real hell.
We need abortion to save women's lives, really. The vast majority of times that a pregnancy becomes dangerous to a woman with many of these conditions occur after 22 weeks when the baby's viable. As a pro-life obstetrician gynecologist and almost 10 years of experience in a tertiary medical center, I have terminated, i.e. ended, hundreds of pregnancies to save women's lives. How many babies did I have to deliberately kill in the process? None, not even one. It's called delivery.
It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
When the lady comes in, for instance, with that pre-eclampsia patient, 27 weeks pregnant, real case, her blood pressure is 220 over 160. And we've got to get her delivered now, because the only way to cure preeclampsia is to end the pregnancy. We're going to deliver this baby by cesarean section because it would be fast. I can do that within an hour. And we're going to take care of the both of them, and we're going to just have to leave it in God's hands.
Cool. And, you know, preeclampsia, very dangerous. Yes. Leave it in God's hands. Just shut the fuck up. But cool. If a woman chose that, she has preeclampsia, do you want to deliver your baby, or, you know, is this a pregnancy we should terminate? That's cool, because you know why? That's called
pro-choice.
But also preeclampsia is not often a medical issue that requires abortion. It can cause early delivery, sure, but also, again, if that's forced upon her, that's forcing potentially horrific medical conditions on the infant when it is born. Because if you have a woman who is 26 weeks pregnant and you give birth to a 26-weeker, you're gonna be in the NICU for a long fucking time, and that baby is gonna have hella health complications, not to mention the emotional, physical distress on the mother. So you know what? You're right. It sounds awesome. What a great way to do that.
Well, I had no idea. That's what went on first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. And I feel like it's so necessary for people to know.
Yeah.
Learn a book, Chachi.
Because I think that if this is what's going to happen, the media and news outlets and people can just downplay it.
Yeah. And even with like the little bit that I did know, just hearing it from him and hearing his stories and just the details of it was such a different experience, just hearing him say that.
Yeah.
You know what would actually be beneficial? Talking to a doctor who is alternatively pro-choice, or at the very least doesn't belong to Focus on the Family. Well-rounded, multi-sourced information that functions outside of your ignorance and biases. That might be helpful.
It opens up your eyes, you know? Like, you hear the word abortion and I feel like it's become so normalized, and I'm glad that we can have conversations about it.
Okay, but again, you're having conversations about it with people who will stroke your confirmation bias. Real research, real conversation requires both sides of the coin, Biff.
But like, where's the truth at?
Yeah.
Well, the truth is, here's someone who's performed 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
You know, instead of someone telling you, you know, what they think it is.
Oh my god, take several fucking seats, Danny Zuko.
It's like, you hear all these different, I don't want to say lies, but you just hear all these different variations of what an abortion is. Well, let's just go to the source.
Yeah, you just get right to the source. Just like when TMZ reports that a source saw Elvis at Chateau Marmont at 4 a.m. You go to the source.
So here's a crazy thought. I would not be here today if my grandma did not choose life for my mom. As a matter of fact, her story is wild. I sat down with her to talk about it. You're about to hear it, but her story is so beautiful because it shows the generational impact of choosing, yes, I'm gonna keep this baby.
Oh, here we fucking go.
When my mother was around 18 years old, she found herself pregnant and with no family except a brother that would take her in.
Oh, I mean, did she try closing her legs? Or just being more responsible? No? Doesn't apply? Okay.
He delivered me and kept me for 4 months and really wanted to keep me. She chose to give me up, but first good choice was she chose to let me live. I was adopted into a wonderful family. When I was 16 years old, my mother that raised me died of a massive heart attack. I ended up pregnant. The young man that got me pregnant and his dad really wanted me to get an abortion. My daddy, he ran them out of the yard and made them get back in their car and wouldn't let me go with them.
Cool story. And if what Granny really wanted was to keep that baby, then right the fuck on. Again, that's called being
Pro-choice.
pro-choice. Isn't I want to murder babies. Pro-choice is I want the choice to decide whether or not to literally have a human grow inside me and then take care of it for the rest of my life.
And I had my beautiful little girl. So I was 17 when she was born, and we kind of grew up together. I was never sorry. I was never sorry. Even though I was pregnant without being married, I just was never sorry. And the minute you hold that baby and look at that baby, everything that you went through that was scary, it just goes away.
Sure, yeah, for a lot of moms it absolutely does. But for 10 to 20% of women, they'll develop postpartum depression. So painting every story with the same brush is not really representative of everybody's experience. I'm glad it worked out for her. That's fantastic. We wouldn't have this fabulous documentary without her. But the reality is it doesn't always work out that way. Like, that's a nice story, and yes, it is a possibility for some, but it doesn't always, it's not always that cut and dry. And I think it's incredibly important that we look at all the nuance of all these conversations, especially when they involve the life, death, sickness, well-being, mental health of women and people with uteruses.
Saying yes to keeping your baby affects so much more than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, you're right, Wayne Newton. It does. It affects the body and the health, both mental and physical, of the pregnant person. It affects their life, their future, their careers, their quality of life, their ability to decide for themselves what their lives will be like. It's very rich that some fucking cishet douche has so many opinions on the effects of abortion versus no abortion when he likely just learned what a cervix is.
It's so important to rally around these women.
Yes, we want to rally around these women at Planned Parenthood and their local clinics. Don't forget to show them doctored photos of aborted fetuses to scare them into having a baby.
In a time where they feel so vulnerable. In my granny's case, it was her dad who was able to chase off these men. And I'm thankful for my great-granddad, who I never even got to meet, because if he didn't chase them off, I wouldn't be here. So there's so many little pieces that we just need to rally around these women to remind them, even if it's just one person saying, hey, you can do this. Hey, I'm here with you. It's gonna be okay.
Hand them a fat chunk of the money you made exploiting your kids, and then we'll talk.
We found a ministry called Embrace Grace, and this is exactly what they do every single day.
In the church, the abortion rate is exactly the same inside the church as it is outside the church. There's no difference. And even with my own story, I went to church every single week. I did it not cross my mind that I'm pregnant, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. Maybe I'll go to the church and ask for wisdom, guidance, prayer, support.
Doctored visual representations of aborted fetuses.
Then we want the church to be a safe place for them. And then also, if they end up choosing abortion, we don't want them to, but if they do, we believe the church should be a safe place for them too. But we started Embrace Grace, and it's for women with unexpected pregnancies to find hope, community, support. They meet other girls going through the same thing that they are.
So I looked into Embrace Grace, and it turns out they send what's called a love box to women considering abortion, which one of the girls in a later segment talks about, and it is like a big box of guilt. In what they call an attempt to take away the fear and shame creates more shame. But again, fear and shame are not the only reasons for abortion, so.
After a conversation with Amy, we were just so encouraged and blown away by all the resources available. In fact, you can actually click the link in the top of our description box down below, type in your zip code, and just get involved right away.
So what if you're pursuing your dreams, your career, you're going to school, and then an unexpected pregnancy happens? What do you do?
You know, I kind of just noticed that Don Johnson here is really doing a lot of the talking in this documentary. Why is it always the haircuts with no uterus who have the most to say? I also just realized that the noise machine has been on in the background this entire time. So you're all gonna fucking hate that, but I'm not getting up to change that, not right now. We've come this far, and I am fucking here.
So we actually got to sit down with Shanice, who was faced with those exact same circumstances. And this is what she did.
I didn't really grow up in the church. I started, having a relationship with God probably like 14, 15, and it became.
Tell me that that's not the faces of two people who have just seen their first black person.
And then I ended up moving to, Texas about 8 years ago. At one point I was in a homeless shelter for a few months. I just started showing out, talking to all the guys, One of my friends, she was in college. I was coming back from her thing that she had going on. And I just felt so sick. I'm the type of person that I'm not gonna wait it out. I need to know what's going on right then and there. So I went to the emergency room. I remember the doctor just...
It's been 3 minutes and they have not changed their expression once. Not once.
Came on out like it was just normal. He was like, oh, you're sick because you're pregnant. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And so I don't even remember not crying. I just cried the whole time I was there, like a pregnancy center. I remember they had like a love in the box, and it was from Embrace Grace, and inside of it had like a onesie for my boy, and it also had like a necklace, like little invitation to get a necklace, and it was like a pro-love necklace. It was so sweet.
Nothing like a big old guilt trip box delivered straight to the hormonal pregnant person. That's compassion. And I'm not saying that these aren't nice thoughts, because I do feel like there are some people who get pregnant and they think, I don't want to abort this fetus, which is fine. Again, what are the options, outside of just adoption or whatever? And it is nice to have that conversation too, but we can't have that conversation and take away the rest of it. It doesn't work like that.
Me choosing to have my baby, now I just launched my business. And so not only am I, a single mom that chose life, but God is now transitioning me to being a boss chick. And I love that. So I launched my business in May. You really can honestly have your baby and your dreams too.
Yeah, but again, that is like a really, really narrow brush to try and paint an entire subset of people with. Yeah, sometimes that works out, and sometimes, things turn out great, and yay for that, but sometimes they really don't. Sometimes you have a parent who's an addict and needs to heal themselves before they can dedicate their lives to a child. Sometimes people just don't fucking want kids because they don't think they can handle the responsibility. And if this is all about the kids, why are we putting children on a chopping block, a metaphorical chopping block, to find out if this person can parent them or not? Sometimes people just don't want fucking kids. And do you even know that birth control is only something like 97% effective? Shit happens. There has to be a shit happens clause and everything. You know what I mean?
We absolutely loved our conversation with Shanice. Her personality is just so infectious, and we know that she's just going to go on to do such incredible things. She's already doing incredible things. She's the perfect example of being able to have your baby and your dreams too. She's pursuing this bomb mom's career, and we just wanted to invest into that and sow into her because she's doing it right now.
Yeah.
One story that stood out in particular was the story of Dana. She was homeless, living out of her car, raising her kids literally out of her car, and she was just in a tough spot. Life was really hard, and we just feel like if she can do it, then anybody can do it.
Great, but all these stories are whataboutisms. Every story is different. Not every need for abortion is I can't or I don't want it, even though it sometimes is. And it's definitely not killing babies, yay! Often it's I miscarried and didn't dispel the fetus and I need medical assistance to do that. Sometimes it's this pregnancy could kill me. Sometimes it's this fetus is not fucking viable. Or sometimes it's just, it's my fucking body and I'm not a host for Spawn. What you have to realize, if you're pro-life, if you're anti-choice, pro-life is a misnomer. The thing you have to realize is that women and people with uteruses, we're fucking people. We are already people. We are not put on this earth simply to shit babies. That's not what we're here for. A lot of us have really fucking fulfilling lives, even if we do have children. Outside of that, there's so much more to life than just shitting out babies because you think scraping out some cells in the early weeks of pregnancy is wrong. Especially when that someone that thinks it's wrong is a man who will never understand what it is to be someone with a uterus, who will have to carry a pregnancy to term and deliver a baby in any capacity, or have to make the heart-wrenching decision to abort a child that might kill them. So the gist of Dana's story here is that she overcame homelessness and chose to keep her son because she didn't think her life was a priority. She didn't think that she was more important than a potential child, which again is cool as hell because that's called pro-choice. Did you realize that keeping your baby is also a part of being pro-choice? Did you realize that? Or were you caught up being ignorant? I don't know who I'm asking. I'm just asking in general.
So after hearing Dana's story, Savannah and I both just felt led to give her a gift. We weren't expecting to do that, but we were just so encouraged and motivated by her story that we knew that we had to act on this. So I just want to encourage you guys that if you ever felt led to help anybody in any way, even if it's not financially, you can help with your time or anything, you should always act on that. To think that there's so many of these places readily available to assist and help these women blows our minds, but we all need to step up and help because these places are free.
You are absolutely right, Baloney Danza. There are so many free programs for mothers, like WIC and food stamps, both of which have been completely demonized by the right. Also, this doesn't account for like childcare, which can cost as much as your fucking mortgage. That is if you have a house and you're not homeless. Not to mention doctor and hospital bills, unforeseen illnesses, especially considering a global pandemic and the existence of COVID-19, school, clothes, food, you know, literally get fucked. The same people who are sitting here saying, look at all these free organizations are the same people who are like,
I can't believe she got a fucking steak with her link card. Oh my god.
And just offering all these resources and they run off of donations. I encourage you to get involved with the local pregnancy center.
Great idea, Greg Brady. Below, I've linked where you can apply to be a clinic defender at your local Planned Parenthood to keep weirdos who don't know how to mind their own fucking business or spend an afternoon, you know, doing literally anything else besides bothering women seeking basic health care. So if you'd like to get involved with that or just donate to Planned Parenthood, that's down below.
One way that we felt led to help was actually to throw a baby shower for this girl named Gypsy. She was amazing, so sweet. We actually got a bunch of our friends, a bunch of the church to gather around her and throw her a baby shower, and we actually fulfilled basically her entire registry.
This was just such a beautiful example of a community coming together to love one person, and I feel like so many people say, well, if you can't do something for everybody, then I don't want to do anything for anybody. but what we want to say is we want to do everything for somebody, but we wish we could do for everybody.
Yeah.
And so it was just a beautiful orchestration of what we felt like to do for this one person, and we want to do more of it.
The one thing I really like about this video is that this is just these rich anti-choice clowns patting themselves on the back for being anti-choice and forcing it on others, and giving money to mothers who've sacrificed their whole lives and then decided to come and expose their entire life story to these people. Like, it's fucking weird, man.
What would you say to a young woman who comes to you and says, I'm pregnant, I'm thinking about having an abortion, what do I do?
A caution for the audience. Don't ever, ever talk about an abortion as being a convenience. That so-and-so had an abortion because it's the convenient thing. Pregnancy is not convenient. Never, ever say that.
Okay, so I can't have an abortion, and I can't refer to it as a convenience. Can I still iron your shirt and make you a 3-course meal, or is that out too? I don't think any woman would call abortion convenient, especially considering the state of fucking healthcare in this country. I would say any time you'd have to go to a doctor would be an absolute inconvenience. But, okay.
Understand that women who are contemplating abortion are under tremendous stress. They are worried about their education. They are worried about their finances. They don't want mom and dad to know she's been having sex with Johnny. Whatever it is that's driving her, there are powerful forces and powerful things within her mind driving her to consider an abortion.
I don't know, man. Maybe the condom just fucking broke and she doesn't want a fucking baby. Maybe she's considering, I don't know, surviving longer than the next 9 months, and this ectopic pregnancy just isn't gonna work out in accomplishing that goal.
There is something that only you can give your son or daughter, and that is the chance to live, the very same chance that you have to enjoy life. Only you can provide that to them.
And if having that baby compromised her right to live, throw her in jail, probably, right? Yeah, okay, got it.
I know that this whole documentary is obviously centered around the mom and her baby, but obviously there's a father.
Oh, get bent, Johnny Bravo.
There's a father somewhere, and I feel like in every one of these stories, the father was absent, the man was absent, and he's just not involved. He takes a back seat, takes a step back. It's just easier that way. You know, it's harder to take a step forward and say, wow, I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't ready, but I'm going to be here with you. I'm going to rally with you. It's already hard enough as is for a mom to do this, let alone being alone. Mm-hmm. So I feel like as men, we need to step up. We need to rise to the occasion whenever something that maybe seems unfortunate and difficult at the time could come to be one of the greatest blessings in your life.
Like, imagine letting this fucking meathead be the spokesperson for your uterus. Oh, fuck.
After walking into Embrace Grace and talking with Amy Ford and seeing their team and hearing all the resources available, I just felt so encouraged and so relieved that, like, wow, people are being the front runners. People are doing this. Because you know, you think, why aren't people doing more? Why isn't there enough? Why isn't there this, and this? It's like, oh, there is. I just didn't know about it.
Well, actually, Dollar Store Jamie Dornan, the part where you're ignorant is where you lead with God. I've never had God inside me. Sky Daddy has no bearing on reality, okay? If you practice religion, you believe in God, that's totally fine. I don't judge you for that. But the fact that we are putting God, an intangible entity, I suppose we could say, as the front runner in a very real consequence of women's lives, weird, gross, and fucking infuriating. And were he real, he certainly should have no bearing on women's bodies or folks with uteruses bodies, or their bodily autonomy. and churches should pay taxes.
Yeah.
I didn't know about
We
it.
just had no idea.
You know, and I think that that's the problem is that people just don't know. If we didn't know, and
Yeah.
here we are making a documentary about it,
Yeah.
how do we expect teenagers or young moms or other people who just aren't even looking for these resources to know?
Yeah. And what I really love about Embrace Grace is the community that you get.
Oh, so it's an MLM. Got it. I feel like at this point, this video should come with an FTC disclosure. Anybody want to research whether or not these motherfuckers got paid by Embrace Grace?
What are we doing for the life outside the womb? Because there is so much. You know, there's an overburdened foster care system, there's homelessness, and there's all this stuff. And we got to participate in an event called One Day LA, where at this One Day LA, over 20,000 people just got to go and serve and love the city. They got to eliminate millions of dollars in medical debt and furnish homes where kids were literally getting taken by their parents because they didn't have furniture, just for the simple things. And families got to stay together instead of getting their kids put into foster care systems.
Cool, yeah. And did you know that all that can be done while still letting uterus owners have abortions? Did you know that that could still happen outside of the medically necessary procedure of abortion? Because this kind of stuff it's supplemental. It's not a guarantee. Like, you can't, it's not a replacement for an abortion. If Tanya doesn't want to have kids and your way to sweeten the pot is by saying, yeah, but did you know that there's all these programs for help and free stuff? That doesn't make Tanya want to have a baby. That doesn't change her mind. Or let's say Tanya's been SA'd and she's pregnant, and let's throw it in. Let's say she's also having an ectopic pregnancy. Still, that's free stuff isn't going to help her, because the fetus in her fallopian tube is going to kill her. Literally, she will die. So,
Only just to start, just the ripple effects. We don't know what's to come from it. There's so much more that we can personally do, that I know you watching can do. I feel like our nation just loves to divide us, that you're either this or you're this.
yeah, that's not false, Dirk Diggler, but when you limit your research to fit your narrative, that reinforces your confirmation bias, and that leads to the spread of misinformation, and therefore deepens that divide. So, it's not that hard.
While we were in Texas, we sat down with Israel Jones, who actually went through with an abortion, to later find out a few months later that she's now having this miracle baby.
You know, I followed through with the Planned Parenthood stuff, and I did attempt an abortion. They gave me the pill, and you know, I went home. They sent me home to do this abortion by myself, which that was like, wow, I gotta go home and deal with this, you know, on my own. So that night I had an abortion, you know, I lost something. So 3 months went by, I was working and everything, and all these weird changes were happening with my body. I finally was like, I need to go to the hospital and just see what's going on. So I did, and I told them everything that happened, and they put a little ultrasound on me, and they said, looks like you got a 5-month-old baby in you. Couldn't believe how beautiful she was, how perfect she was.
Yeah, that's a really sweet story, but either that lady be dumb or that lady be lying, because you will take 2 doses of this medical abortion pill. 2, not 1. They're not going to send you home to take 1 pill. You take 1 at the clinic, not alone, and then you take 1 when you get home the next day. I believe it's the next day. So,
I fucking can't with these people.
Insane baby fever. Especially when they're this cute.
Your grace will be enough.
wow, that video was a flaming pile of dog shit. Man, it's really easy to make all of it fit into just a tight little narrative when you just negate things like facts and the nuance of the conversation. Every woman, every person with a uterus deserves the right to bodily autonomy. If you are assaulted, you do not deserve to have to heal from that trauma while bringing your assailant's baby to term. If you are knocked up by inadequacies of birth control or even one dumb night of carelessness, you still do not deserve to have to upheave your entire life to carry a baby you do not want or cannot care for. I've said it twice now, I'll say it again, we are not hosts for spawn. If we choose to get pregnant, even if we accidentally get pregnant and we choose to keep the baby, that's fantastic. Again, that's part of being pro-choice. Pro-choice does not mean anti-baby. It means that women should have the right to decide what they want to do with their own fucking bodies. And every single day, there is a law being bandied about somewhere within the 50 fucking states, and even on a federal level, about whether or not we fucking deserve that as human beings. Because they won't stop at Roe. Next will be birth control. As you can see, is already happening in Louisiana. Then it'll be gay marriage and interracial marriage. And they won't stop until they've turned the clock all the way back to the 1950s. I really wish I had something funny to say right now. But frankly, all I have is this montage of these two fucking idiots looking aborted behind the eyes. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I don't know that I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to give it a like if you didn't like this video. Whatever. And I can hear my children. Yes, I have children. That was my choice. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, which will be a little less heavy, God willing. God, Sky Daddy. Alright, I'm gonna go eat chicken. Bye.
If Roe is overturned, there is so much more at stake than just a woman's right to choose. Roe did not specifically say, oh, you now have a right to an abortion, per se. Instead, it set the precedent that medical decisions are private and the government cannot interfere. Because of that, the government can no longer tell women that they cannot have an abortion. Because Roe centered around privacy from government intrusion, that is what paved the way for LGBTQ+ rights, gay marriage, interracial marriage, decriminalizing contraceptives, medical privacy and HIPAA, and of course bodily autonomy. All of those stemmed from Roe. This right to privacy that Roe established is also why people can homeschool their children instead of sending them to public school or send them to a private religious school. It's what keeps the government out of our personal lives and our decision making. SCOTUS overturns Roe, that right to privacy is gone because every relevant case since then was built off of Roe. If you remove the thing that set the precedent, then everything that came after that was set on that precedent suddenly becomes destabilized.